Hi, Year 12. At the end of today's lesson, I was asked by a few of you who hung back about integration and what should it look like. I did mention that I had an essay that I had written previously for 1984 Metropolis, which is a former unit of the HSC. And that I'll share it with you. I'm not going to share the whole thing because I think for this assessment task it's just going to confuse you. Um, One, it's persuasive. Two, it belongs to a different module, um, and it's got the wrong type of language in it for an information text rather than or informative text, because it was a persuasive text. However, the question was, what should integration look like? You need integration to get to those to push the marks up for your all of your responses when you're writing about two particular texts, which you're doing for this assessment. So I thought I would give you just a quick look at just one of the body paragraphs. It's like the third or fourth body paragraph, so it's launched straight into the middle of the essay. And as I said, this was a persuasive essay, so the language choices are not necessarily the right ones. I've used a lot of high modality and a lot of persuasive words. But in terms of our argument, in the sense of what does integration look like, I think this will still help you. So you'll see here my topic sentence. Start with the word however, because this is in the middle of the essay and it is linked to the body paragraph that came beforehand, and it shows that I'm continuing my line of discussion. Now I've used the word however because I'm showing a different perspective. And you'll see I start with, so I'm talking about, in this particular essay, I was talking about Fritz Lang's silent film Metropolis and George Orwell's 1984. So you'll see here I carry on from my last paragraph, my discussion of Lang. However, society did not heed Lang's warning, and a mere 20 years later, women were now legally required to join in that servitude to the machine. For Orwell, so you'll see here that I've started off using my previous text in my topic sentence, and now I'm bringing in the text I'm going to talk about in this paragraph. For Orwell, this means a total loss of domesticity within 1984, and now we've got the name of the text. Such loss is reflected in the invasion of Big Brother through telescreens into the home that Chesterton argues must be free from rules. When I'm talking about Chesterton here, I used a statement by G.K. Chesterton as my motherhood statement for the introduction. So then I go, however, in Orwell's dystopian universe, the home is a prison in which each member of society lived from the habit that became instinct, and I go on. You'll then see, and now this is what's important for you for your information text, is all the evidence that I have. And look at how I blend my quotes in. And this is what you need to be doing in your writing. I don't have anywhere in my essay the words in the quote. Everything is blended in to make a sentence. So my syntax, the way I use the quotes within my writing, it becomes one complete sentence. So I have, however, in Orwell's dystopian universe, the home is a prison in which each member of society lived from the habit that became instinct. You'll see here I've got that square brackets around the D. The quote is live from the habit, and I've added the D so that it's syntactically correct or grammatically correct. Live from the habit that became instinct in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard and, except in darkness, every movement scrutinized. Now I start analyzing that. The repetition of every creates a sense. So now I'm getting into my representation. How does it represent the ideas I'm talking about? The repetition of every creates a sense that the family home no longer exists. Coupled with the past and children who betray their parents, the audience realizes that in this world where both men and women must work, liberty no longer exists. Now get to the integration I was talking about. Unlike in Metropolis, where the mother figure is still present, ready to intercede and save humanity, in 1984, the mother ceases to exist. So even though I'm talking about 1984, I keep moving back and forth between the two texts. Now I'm talking about 1984 again. Winston's mother is a memory only, something from the past, pre-Big Brother. And now I go back to my first text. Similarly to Maria, Now I'm back onto 1984. Winston's mother had possessed a kind of nobility, and notice how I've brought that quote in, and it's just a continuation of my sentence. So similarly to Maria, Winston's mother had possessed a kind of nobility, a kind of purity, simply because the standards that she obeyed were private ones. In a depraved dystopian universe where everything is scrutinized, that's from the text, the anaphora of kind of nobility, a kind of purity, coupled with the private standards, so see how I'm using all these quotes here, I'm just blending them in, renders Winston's mother antithetic just as Maria is. So I'm talking about both texts. Maria is from Metropolis, not from 1984. Unlike Maria, though, so my main argument is about Winston's mother, but I keep bringing in Maria so I can show that I'm integrating my discussion with two texts. Unlike Maria, though, she cannot save society, for Winston realizes it was a false memory. And again, I've got that quote blended in a discursive kind of response. This kind of sentence is what will help you in a discursive response. Notice that I don't actually have a technique attached to that or a language device. It's just I've got the quote in there. The mother is lost to society. Ultimately, and now this is where it becomes persuasive or evaluative, and so it's not necessarily informative, but ultimately Orwell's dystopian universe reveals to his contemporaries a total loss of humanity. Anyway, that's just so you can see how the integration works when you're talking about two texts. I would then have another paragraph, which I can possibly see if I can pull up for you on my screen. Yep. So here I have another one where, actually I think this is my conclusion. Yeah, that's the conclusion. But if I scroll up, you'll see this one I'm talking about Metropolis, and I bring in information about my text just here on Metropolis. But as you go down, you will see that I bring in 1984 as well. Perhaps not in that paragraph, but up here, definitely up here. Here I'm talking about Lang and Metropolis, and yet here I'm talking about Orwell. So Lang, Orwell, and so I just move back and forth between the two. What you need to remember for this particular module when you've got a related text is text and human experiences is about human experiences represented in the text. So when you were writing about the human experiences, and then you were just showing how that particular idea is represented through the two texts that you have chosen. It's very important that you get that right, because otherwise you go in and say, I'm writing about 1984 in my related text, and then you forget that you're actually meant to be writing about the human experience. So you make the human experience that you're talking about as the overarching idea that's going to flow through your conversation, or that you represent in this text. And then you're going to support it with evidence from your two texts, and you're going to move in and out of those two texts to do it. And you'll do it the way I've done it here, with that integration, where I keep saying, just like in this text we have, so similarly to Maria, Winston's mother had possessed, and so on. Unlike Maria, though, she cannot save society, for Winston realizes. So I'm just flowing from one text to the other. And that's what proper integration should look like. I hope that helps, and I hope that answers the questions that you had today. Thanks.